Welcome to the third demonstration today, and this time we are looking at the translucent St. Stephen's Cathedral. So why have we done this project? It is a further development or a next step from the Great Pyramid project. What we did in the Great Pyramid project is we used 12K 360 videos just basically to have a very high resolution which is needed for environments like that. Why do you need resolution so high? Well, this is very simple, because with a 360 video you only see approximately 1/3 or 1/4 of the whole video at the time, which means when you have an 8K display, then the video needs to have probably 3 or 4 times the resolution of your environment, and this is really huge. And what we did here in this project is that we created the content in the resolution which really corresponds to the native resolution of an 8K device. So that means, again, we are using here these cube maps that Clemens had explained in the previous presentation, but this time one side of the cube is 8K. So which means that this is incredibly higher resolution in total that we have to handle here. And this is a resolution which goes completely beyond what current video players are capable of. As you know, 8K playback is something which is coming more or less now to the mainstream market for 60 frames per second, normal 8K videos. But just to have basically a cube with 6 sides of 8K and to handle this is really an enormous high data rate that needs to be handled here. And we want to do it in stereo as well, which means like twice the frame rate. So this is really something where we on purpose go beyond the capabilities of current video playback hardware. And why we are doing this is because we want to see the visual quality in an environment like this of content rendered at this resolution. Because this is basically the goal where the video decoding needs to go to in order to achieve really this native immersive resolution here in this environment. And this is basically what we tried with this project to really work in this way and get for the audience also then a visual impression how this can be done. And therefore we also need to make a different way of how the interaction works. And this is now something also, I guess, what Johannes will explain to us also. He will talk about the whole process, how these images had been created, which also is enormously challenging to render images at this resolution. And therefore I would like to introduce as a first part Johannes Böll, who is lead designer at Ars Electronica Futurelab, and he was basically the lead designer also then here in this project and took care of to create these impressive visual images.
Hello and welcome to the sneak preview of the translucent St. Stephen's Cathedral. It is a sneak preview because the final project will be released at the festival this year, and later on also in Deep Space 8K. And we are currently in a work in progress situation here. So, what is the translucent St. Stephen's Cathedral? It's basically a 3D exploration of the cathedral in Deep Space 8K. We worked together with Dombauhütte Wien, RIEGL Laser Measurement Systems, ScanLAB Projects, and we are the Ars Electronica Futurelab. Dombauhütte Wien is basically in charge of the inheritance of the St. Stephen Cathedral, and they take care of the preservation of the cathedral. RIEGL Laser Measurement System provided the raw data which this project is based on. And we, the Ars Electronica Futurelab and ScanLAB Projects together took that data and made this 3D explorable cathedral for the Deep Space 8K. So, RIEGL Laser Measurement Systems scanned the cathedral as a point cloud. ScanLAB then took the point cloud data and rendered it in 360-degree 3D textures. And we took those textures and put them into a 3D environment for the deep space 8K. So what is a point cloud? Point cloud is basically a 3D scan of objects or surroundings, and this is done with lasers. So when you have a camera and you took a photo of something, the photo is basically based on a grid of pixels. And with a laser scanner, you can scan the environment in 3D, and what you then have is like points that corresponds to coordinates and color values. So you can take the real world and put it into digital space. For the St. Stephen Cathedral, this amounts to 20 billion points, which is basically 400 gigabytes of raw data. And this is so much data that it's really difficult to process. So we had to come up with a workflow together with ScanLAB Projects to make this data feasible. ScanLAB then came and made a low-res version of the point cloud, so we could explore the point cloud on our computers here in the Futurelab and find locations that were interesting or showed the cathedral in a different angle as you normally see it when you are there in person. So we basically went on location scouting in the virtual world. And then we came up with 40 points that were of a certain interest inside and outside of the cathedral. And we gave those locations to ScanLAB, and ScanLAB took the location data and rendered this point cloud as a 360 three-dimensional texture. And this had to be done in 30K. So what is 30K? This little square here on the left is full HD resolution. This is what you normally know from like Blu-rays or your TV set at home. The second square next to it is 8K. This is basically what you have here in deep space in terms of resolution. And this big square here is 30K. So this is the resolution size we had to render for the St. Stephen's Cathedral. And as the St. Stephen's Cathedral is a three-dimensional exploration, we don't had to just come up with one texture for one location. We actually had to make two for every eye you have. Because when you render in 3D, you have one texture for the left eye and one texture for the right eye. But when you're looking at these renderings, you see there are a lot of different layers of transparency. And this is the look we wanted to achieve. We wanted to look through the cathedral and show it in a different angle. And to come up with all these different transparency layers, you don't actually have to render it one time, you have to render it several times for every different transparency layer. So in the end, we had to do a lot of rendering with ScanLAB, and this amounts again to a lot of data, which is really difficult to handle. Then we took all these renderings and an optimized point cloud and put them together for the deep space 8K presentation. So you can actually explore the cathedral in real time here in deep space, in three-dimensional, in a three-dimensional version, and yeah, and can experience it here in deep space later on this year at the festival. So thank you. And oh, here is Roland.
Just need to turn on my microphone. That's a good idea. So, Johannes, thank you very much for the introduction to the data that has been handled here. And as you see, it's really incredibly intense what needs to be done here. And basically what we have decided then is, due to the fact that one frame of such a potential video is so huge, we cannot show this as a video. So that's why those 40 positions had been selected and rendered. And what we are doing now is to provide an interactive application that you can use to explore these locations in the data set and navigate through those. And this is now something where Melinda will give us a preview of on some of those positions or locations in the data set. And I would ask her, please, take her through some of these impressive images.
Hello, everybody. This is Melinda from Deep Space. And we will now actually explore the dome together. I must admit, this is the second time I'm seeing this project. It's brand new. So we will actually explore it together. And I'm really, really excited about this. Right, so let's turn around. We are now standing in the west, basically almost by the entrance. And we're looking down the central nave. And as you can notice, St. Stephen's Cathedral is a three-nave cathedral, three-nave church, just as is very, very typical for Gothic cathedrals. And what you can already see is what Johannes already mentioned. You see these translucent pillars, basically. And I will now change to the next view. And by the way, just a second. And by the way, this will be fully interactive. Right now, I'm switching from view to view, and I can give you this 360 degrees of angle, where we can look around. Okay, we're looking back towards the west entrance again, and you may notice that there is this large wooden structure, and I will try to point it out to you with my laser pointer. I do hope that you can see it. This wooden structure, and usually the huge organ, the largest organ of this church, stands on this platform right here. And at the moment, at the time when this scan was created, it was being renovated. So this is why it is missing. It's actually quite an impressive sight, but interestingly, it's missing right here. Okay, let's turn around again. Okay, so this is one of the most famous parts of St. Stephen's Cathedral, and one of the most significant Gothic pieces of art in Austria, actually. A magnificent 15th century piece of sculpture. And usually the person who was doing the service was standing on top of this. I actually forgot the correct term for this kind of structure, but I think you get the meaning. Here, the person was standing, and so they could actually be seen and heard nicely from there. Okay, so we can already see the main organ of the church, which is right here, and we will jump ahead again. and then you can see it better. St. Stephen Church has actually, or St. Stephen's Cathedral has 3 organs. The huge, gigantic one that is currently, or at this point in time, was missing. Then we have the main organ, which is actually quite compact for, a cathedral of this size, but it works quite well for the purposes of St. Stephen's Cathedral. Here you can see it. I have now put it in the center, you see. It's not quite as large as you would probably expect from a main organ, I suppose. Okay, let's take a look around. As you can see, we moved ahead a little bit. And from this perspective, I should be able to zoom in and show you a little detail that is quite famous. It's very, very popular with tourists, actually. You cannot see it quite so well, but this is the so-called Fenstergucker. And Fenster means window, and Gucker means, well, looker, basically. So this person looks like he was looking out of a window, and this is why it's called Fenstergucker in German. And probably it's at least a significant person who was involved in building the cathedral, but we cannot know for sure who it is exactly. So that's not quite, there's no consensus about it quite yet. Okay, so let's turn around again. And now we can see the main altar. We will move a little bit further to the front again. And I don't know if you have noticed, this is very typical for Gothic churches in Austria, at least. The original Gothic altars were usually replaced by Baroque altars, and stylistically it is a little bit different, or quite different to be exact, from the Gothic style, but they managed to integrate it quite nicely. Okay, so here we see a view of the underground, of the catacombs, and I will take you to the catacombs in a moment. This is just a little sneak peek. And this is where translucency makes totally sense, right? Because we can see what is in the underground as well. So again, this main altar was produced in the 17th century, by the way, by Johannes Jakob Pock. And what I think is quite funny, actually, is that he took his sweet time with finishing the altar, so his employers had to threaten him with jail. So he finished in time, but only just. And his brother actually painted the central painting, this huge painting. And we will actually have a closer look, but now we are on the right-hand side as seen from before, in the south, or actually in the southern, what is it called? Tower, right? And I will just quickly look around with you. And what we see here, is this the same organ that we saw before? You know, the main organ, basically? It's much, much smaller. It's actually the mobile organ. And the funny thing is, here you see it again. So it was actually probably moved in the process of the scan, so we have it on here twice. Okay, a little artifact. But I think these kinds of things are quite exciting, actually. You know, little details that you can explore. And it also shows that the process takes some time, right? It takes quite some time, or some time to do a scan, and you have to do multiple ones, of course. Okay, so right now, I actually have to orient myself a little bit. We are on the other side. We are now near the northern tower, and this is very famous. It's the grave, or the tomb, actually, the tomb of Frederick III. And Frederick III lived in the late 15th century. And it took people about 45 years to finish this huge monument. It weighs about 40 or I think 44 tons in total, so massive structure. And the reason why he has this significant monument here in the dome is that he was one of the sponsors of the cathedral. Okay, so now we can already see the original Gothic altar right here on the right-hand side. We will be able to see it a little bit better in a moment. Or actually, it's a original Gothic altar. It's not the original altar from St. Stephen's Cathedral. That one was lost hundreds of years ago. Here we have a better look at the main altar. I can zoom in for you, so you can see St. Stephen himself, actually. It's this guy right here. This is St. Stephen, the saint that is the patron of this church, that this church was devoted to, basically. And he's currently being in the process of being stoned. I mean, like stoned, as in rocks being hurled at him until he, succumbed to his wounds. And before he died, he saw a vision of Christ, and you can see the depiction of this vision on top, right? Oh, and actually my favorite parts of this altar are the statues. They're quite beautifully made out of marble, and some quite famous saints among them. Saint Sebastian right here, left-hand side, and this is Saint Leopold. This is Saint Florian, very, very popular one in Austria. And this is Saint Rocco, patron of dogs, among other things, by the way. So this was just a quick glance at the center, or the main altar, the most significant one, the largest one. And it's actually so large that it's blocking out a few windows. So less sunlight, more pump, I suppose. And next I can show you a Gothic altar. Oh, sorry. As I mentioned before, I'm currently exploring with you, and this is a nice one. This is a really nice one. This is one of my favorite views, actually. So glad that Clemens, the developer of this program, included this view, because we can see the towers. I do hope that you can see them nicely. These are the so-called heathens towers, or Heidentürme, as they are called in German, and they are in Romanesque style. One of my favorite parts of this cathedral. I do love Romanesque architecture. And the dome basically consists of many different styles of architecture, most significantly late Romanesque style, which is the western facade, and the towers are also part of that. Then we have, of course, the Gothic architecture that you see all around us, and many, many Baroque elements. So actually a mix of styles. Right, then we will just move on in a second. And then I can show you the altar that I mentioned multiple times already. We will get there, guys, okay? We will get there. I personally really, really love these types of altars, firstly because they are so old, and I do love old things, but also because I'm very, very particularly fond of Gothic style. See those intricate little details, quite amazing. And this is an altar from the 15th century, but it wasn't originally located in St. Stephen's Cathedral. It came from Wiener Neustadt, from a monastery in Wiener Neustadt. Wiener Neustadt, by the way, for those of you who are not quite familiar with Austrian geography, is a town near Vienna. And this one is devoted to Mary. You see many, many depictions of her in the center, on top, left and right, many, many images of Mary. So this is an example of very, very impressive Gothic wooden art, all right? And what we cannot see here is the words that are written somewhere around here. It's A-I-E-O-U, and A-I-E-O-U was the motto of Frederick III, by the way. And it is not 100% clear what it means. It's actually still a little enigma, basically. We do not know for sure what it means. But Frederick III did a lot of building, and he left this little signage quite often on the buildings that he sponsored. Okay, so here we have the stairs that lead us to the catacombs. Guys, how much time do I have? Okay, a few minutes left, so we can actually just quickly take a look around. And by the way, not only famous people were buried in the catacombs, also ordinary people, ordinary Viennese people were buried here for different reasons. And you know, if you had the money, if you had the funds, or your family, more like, some people would carry your coffin downstairs to the catacombs. A more budget-friendly version would be what I would call a coffin chute. So it was kind of like a slide, and you let down put in the coffin. It would go down, and people who worked downstairs would pick it up and put it with the rest of the people who were buried there. Okay, here we see a translucent view. This is really, I love this. This is really wonderful. You can get a much more, a much better impression of where the catacombs are located this way. Okay, so just a quick trip downstairs. The catacombs are among the most beloved part for tourists. So it's very popular. You can visit them with tours. I personally haven't been yet, to be honest, but Clemens hasn't either. So next time we're in Vienna together, we have to actually check it out, right? Right? Yeah. Clemens says yes. Okay. So here we are in the catacombs, and they are not only like bones and coffins and so on, and urns. In fact, there are also parts of the catacombs that are used for masses. And so this is one of those areas actually, and yeah, there are so many interesting details actually. We could go on and on and on, but this is of course only a sneak peek. And if you're interested in St. Stephen's Cathedral, and if you're interested especially in the finished program that allows us much more freedom to move around and so on, please do check out our program during the festival. I think you will like it. I think it will be very much fun, and then you will be able to see so many more details. But yeah, this was just a quick view of St. Stephen's Cathedral, and I say thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.
Thank you,
to Roland.
Yes, thank you, Melinda. Thank you very much for this impressive presentation. Also, considering that you only had, I think, 1 or 2 days time to prepare and find out so many information and details about St. Stephen's Cathedral. So I'm really looking forward to see what you will additionally find here when you have then even more time basically to interact with the data and find out what more secrets perhaps even are hidden there. This is a preview, so the complete data set actually consists of 4 point clouds. So one is basically the main area inside of the St. Stephen's Cathedral. The second is the catacombs. Third one is the rooftop. So we also have special renderings from the whole roof section. And how this is built up and what perspectives you have there. So normally you are not able to get there. And the fourth point cloud is the whole outside, the exterior. So also to have basically some kind of a better impression of the surrounding. So this is also, those point clouds are also used in these renderings already. So when you see through St. Stephen's Cathedral, you see parts of other data sets as well. And this is all being merged together. And I would also like to ask Clemens to come back here, because I think what would be, I think, very important to elaborate again is that these are not simply photos. So what we see here is not just basically 360 photography, but really a complete different genre of image and rendering. And perhaps you can also elaborate this a bit from your point of view.
Yes, thank you. So what you see here is a point cloud rendering at its best quality that you can imagine, provided by ScanLAB. And if you know what a renderer does or what a ray tracer does in computer graphics, this is pretty similar. We have this point cloud here, and we actually rendered this point cloud like a ray tracer. And if I may ask Melinda to zoom in the most way you can, just zoom in, because it might actually look like a photo, except from the transparencies, of course. But if you zoom very much in, you can start seeing the points. Maybe you can look around a little bit. You can see, I hope you can see it in the mainstream on YouTube and Facebook, but you can see the actual points. If you zoom out, it looks very much like a picture, like a photo with additional transparencies. Maybe an additional information is that this is a very, very rough preview. It's beta or alpha. What we plan to do is a whole application where we mix the point cloud that we can render in real time. We are talking about 70 to 100 million points in real time. And with these awesome images, which are rendered with more than 21 billion, there's a B, points. So we will fly through the real-time point cloud and switch to these images on set viewpoints.
Yeah, because this is now an interactive application already, for sure. But what you see is also that just the loading of new texture set takes just some time due to the incredible size. And that's why we're currently working on additional features to make transitions in between those rendered cubes. So, and that's what you mentioned, to also use a low resolution real-time data set to navigate there. Why does it need to be a low resolution? Because otherwise it's not real time. So we are using the Unreal Engine for that in this case. One of the reasons is that there is now also an explicit support for point cloud rendering. And they are doing a lot of optimization there already, like culling of parts of the point cloud that are not visible in the camera, just to avoid basically unnecessary rendering. Even like having level of details that they use to render parts of the point cloud in another resolution when they are further away. But with all these measurements or all these features, it's not possible to render the whole data set as it is. So this is still way too large. And also, what you do not get for sure is when you do real-time rendering or basically a technical visualization of point cloud, is you're not getting these transparency effects, which are basically so important for the exploration and the immersion basically in data sets like that. And I think this is something which we are working on at the moment, and which will be then also presented for the festival presentation, and to even take this as far as possible.
Yeah, I think we're through.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think also time is it's a good time to end here. So I hope all of you are very excited as well. We are very excited. So we want to thank again also for this collaboration with the Dombauhütte and ScanLAB and RIEGL. So this is always important to have partners like this to make something like that possible, because if you don't have the data, then it's hard to do anything. So what we try to do here is simply to work with it in a good way and take it beyond what is currently visually possible. And yeah, I hope you are excited to see then during the festival the final result. And then I hope we can also return to more normal forms of presentation to really invite people again to this space and explore it for yourself, also in 3D stereo. And yeah, we're looking forward to this and hope that we will see you here. Goodbye.